What's up, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Wizards Latest. I'm your host and DC sports fan, Ben Robertson, and on this page, we break down all the biggest headlines surrounding the Washington Wizards. So make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to drop your comments with any thoughts you have for me on this video or anything you want to hear me talk about in future episodes. Appreciate all the support here on the road to 1K. Keep tuning in every single weekday. Keep consistently being down in that comment section. Today, I want to talk about the latest training camp roster moves the team has made. Then we'll chat about what Alex Sarr has been working on here this offseason. And now, with being officially less than a month away from opening night, I want to give you one big question mark I have for the upcoming Wizards season. Again, guys, thanks for all the support. Thanks for tuning in to Wizards Latest. And like I said, let's jump into training camp roster moves. Leaky Black has been signed to an Exhibit 10 deal. He'll join the team's training camp roster. This is joined by Jonathan Pierre being waived. He was another Exhibit 10 guy. Again, Pierre still could maybe land with the Go-Go. Black, though, the UNC product, was also on the Summer League roster. He comes in for training camp, and the team just kind of continues to cycle these maybe end-of-roster G League candidate type players into training camp for a day or two, kind of get their foot in the water with the NBA crew before maybe getting moved back down to the G League level. Will Dawkins has been open about he's going to use the Go-Go a whole bunch this year. I kind of expect, especially after maybe some moves get made, the rosters between, the NBA roster and the G League roster is going to be pretty fluid. And just giving some of those players, some of those candidates, again, an opportunity to hang out with the NBA roster for maybe a day or two before getting moved on. So like the approach there, again, I feel like with this Wizards team as well, there's sort of the sense that some of these players, some of the kind of flyer guys that might have been picked up here this offseason, you think a Sharif Cooper, if they could really carve out a role, maybe this is an opportunity for them to try to carve out a role in the NBA where they haven't been able to elsewhere. I'm not saying Sharif Cooper is going to do that. I'm just going to say it sort of feels like an opportunity for some of those guys that it hasn't panned out for them over the first few years of their career. But want to move on and chat about Alex Sarr a little bit. Like I said before, kind of talk about some of the big keys for him going into year two. Obviously, we know has to improve his strength, has to become a better finisher inside at the offensive end. So much defensive potential, but I say it all the time. He has to at least be an above average offensive player to sort of balance it out at the other side. Last year for Sarr, only 39% from the floor, only 30% from three-point land. He also only made 45% of his 2-point field goal attempts. And we know as a 7-footer, that's just not good enough in really at any era of the NBA. According to Basketball Reference, Sarr had the lowest true shooting percentage in the entire NBA last year. That sort of weighs the value of every shot a player takes. He also was second worst in the NBA in terms of offensive win shares. The only player worse, our guy, Kyle Kuzma. I say that very sarcastically, but obviously Sarr needs to improve offensively. Like I said, there's a ton of defensive potential, really truly game-changing X-Factor defensive player of the year type potential on one side, but again, it has to be balanced and counteracted with his offensive play. And again, that's sort of part of the question mark of, is he a true center? I've said before, Will Dawkins has clearly expressed he feels like Sarr is a center. And again, his rim protection and ability to sort of switch anything 1 through 5 makes him kind of a unicorn-like maybe defensive player, or at least unicorn-like defensive potential in the NBA. But again, I'll say it one more time, has to be matched offensively, or at least give you 50%, give you 75% of what you're doing at the other end of the court. Remember, Sarr, expect missing the start of camp here, but should be good to go for the beginning of the regular season. I thought it was interesting that he is saying the same thing, sort of that a lot of fans are recognizing as well. He's put on about 20 pounds, at least in terms of his listed weight here this offseason, and also sort of in media availability this week, opening week of Wizards training camp. He's expressed as well wanting to get closer to the basket with a lot of his shot attempts. That's a big focus for him this summer and going into year two. Excited to see if that really shows off on the court. But I mentioned Kyle Kuzma, of course, who was sent on last year to Milwaukee. Well, the Wizards aren't going to wait long to see the former Wizard, even though it's not for too long of a stint here in DC. Of course, we are less than 1 month away from opening night for Washington. Again, the first preseason game, October 12th versus Toronto, and first regular season game, October 22nd versus Milwaukee. Looking back on that deal, really, to move on from Kuzma, who obviously it sort of had a promising start to his time in DC, but just everything really the train fell off the track there that last season. You moved on from him. You got Middleton's contract back, set to expire here this offseason. Big win there, I think. Obviously, AJ Johnson's a young player a lot of people are excited about and feel like has big upside. And I think AJ is going to be part, of the core and definitely part of the mix here this upcoming year as well. So a win there. But really, as I mentioned, we're getting closer and closer to opening night. I know there's a ton of excitement going into this season. I think people understand where the team is in terms of, standings, in terms of situation in that regard. But I just think some of the new faces, maybe the idea that we're really going to know what the future looks like, or maybe more of what the future looks like. We're going to have a clearer picture after this season, I think has a lot of people really fired up. I know just the additions of Trey Johnson, Cam Whitmore, has me pretty hyped. I can't wait to see what Keyshawn George is able to do. Here is one question mark. And before you get on me and say I'm bashing Bub Carrington, I'm not. I'm just asking the question because I like a lot about Bub's mindset and his game. Seems like he's really connected already with a lot of the other young players. Him and Trey Johnson have already seemed to hit it off. But a big question mark for him going into this year. And I'm not saying he can't, but I'm saying he has to prove that he can really truly play point guard and run an offense. I think that's going to be, that's kind of going to be where his role is. We kind of understand at this point, he is going to be the team's likely starting point guard going into the year. Now, he has said, I view myself not quite so much as a point guard, but more of just a basketball player. And honestly, that does align with what Will Dawkins, what the coaching staff has said. They've talked about how they want more ball handlers and they want more players that can handle the basketball a little bit. And they want more of a ball movement offense, maybe not one guy dribbling a whole bunch, bogging things down with isolation basketball. Still, I do think you kind of need that lead guard moving forward. And I think it's going to be interesting to find out if Bub can sort of fit that role or maybe improves in that role as the year progresses. Something I don't think that was talked about a whole bunch. I sort of saw in Summer League. Love his size, love his activity and maybe defensive potential. But I've said on I thought he showed that off in Summer League. I thought he was really active. But something I've said on the page before as well is that when the shot is falling for Bub Carrington, everything seems to sort of click and fall into place. When the shot isn't going, everything seems to get worse. So I think being consistent there is really where everything starts for him and building off of that. But I'll keep you posted on everything Wizards related right here on the page. So make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to drop your comments as well with any thoughts you have for me on the video or anything you want to hear me talk about in the future. You can also hit me over on Twitter at Ben Robertson32. I appreciate all the support here on the road to 1K. Thanks for watching another episode of Wizards Latest.